Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome once again to our channel Going Vocal. And today we're going to be discussing war, peace, and communication. So, yes, I have on my panel Hemant and Anupam Singh once again, two very erudite and very intelligent people. So, we'll start off by asking Mr. Hemant, what do you think or understand by the concept of war?
War actually, yeah. Thank you, Mr. Rahul, and hi, Anupam. Once again, we are uh, handling a very uh, intelligent subject. Yes, and a very important subject too in today's scenario. War actually is something where there is no harmony. When the harmony is lost, peace and war, they are two terms which we normally relate with each other. So peace is where there is total harmony. But when the harmony gets disturbed, it becomes a war. So war has various angles. Normally, when you talk about war, we normally talk about war between two nations. But difference of opinions also can be taken as a war. Examples are between husband and wife, marital discord. These are all small types of wars that happens. Families between wars between two different communities, which happens normally. If you take the state of Tamil Nadu, especially, the upper castes and the lower castes, frequent wars happen. Then, of course, corporate wars. It's a different type of war where there's not much of physical aspect involved, but it is there. Especially, it is literally happening. Wars because its competition is really hotting up. So it is something like one party trying to dominate the other and trying to win. So, and then of course we
Yes.
have the wars between two nations. A party, inter-party, within the party you may have wars, you may have an internal feud or difference of opinion. So there will be one particular faction which doesn't agree with the party high command, and they may, there can be a disharmony, and subsequently probably that party form becomes another party. If you take the case of Tamil Nadu, DMK was the original party, but when the then leader Annadurai disagreed with Karunanidhi, he formed a different faction, and that became to known as AIDMK. So today we have two parties there, AIDMK and DMK. So DMK. So war has got different meanings, and it is basically a discord. When a discord or harmony is not there, it becomes
Yes,
a
yes,
war
very
in
interesting, very interesting. In
various
fact,
scales.
I feel that war is sometimes something that is an outlet for deep subconscious related problems that people sometimes face, you know. I feel that at times you see hidden inside the psyche of man, there are certain fears and insecurities, and sometimes it's communal at a community level. Uh, and when they outburst or they release themselves in order to create a form of balance, we sometimes come out with war. So it's very interesting your ideas on war, Hemant. And I'm going to ask Anupam here a question related to the diametric opposite of war, peace. What do you understand by the term peace, Anupam?
Okay, thanks, Rahul, and thanks, Hemant, for your views on war. And I feel peace is a word which whole world is looking for nowadays. If you see, there are a lot of war happening between countries, and then there are disagreements between two nations. If you see recently, Donald Trump has put some tariffs on China, then Canada, and I think one other country. So because of these, there are a lot of disagreement between the nations, and because of which you see there are a lot of nations which are getting destabilized, and a common human being which is getting affected. So I guess peace is a term where everyone should be looking for, because peace means having agreement, having compromise with each other. You know, people will have disagreement, and then when we have disagreement, people try to be angry with each other, and then they try to put some restrictions on each other, because of which uh, there is problems between nations, and it can be not between nations, also between individuals as well. If we have disagreement in house, and maybe if you are working with your colleagues in office also. So I think compromise is the best way, which I feel is the right word over here nowadays for peace. Because peace means having compromising with each other. There can be disagreement, but if you want peace, you'll have to compromise. You have to look for a bigger, bigger, what, how should I say, bigger agenda, which is called peace, where people have terms with each other, not trying to hit each other with some anger. And because every time we try to do that, people will have conflicts, and conflicts will not create any uh, better sense for people. And peace, I feel, is required nowadays, because if you see, there are a lot of war happening, and at the end, what will happen? There will be peace. You see, Russia and Ukraine war. It's been around almost 2.5 years, but at the end there will be peace. So better than rather than going for wars, having disagreements, try to sit down and try to diplomatically handle things, compromise from both ends, but on a path where both can individually exist and work for their betterment, and for the betterment of the society, and for their own people of the country.
Okay,
Yeah.
very interesting, very interesting. Now, Anupam has used the term compromise here. Hemant, I want to ask you, do you feel this term compromise is the path to peace? Or do you think that another term or any other kind of a situation would be better to describe peace? Do you think that once we compromise, like let's say an individual compromises some of his principles or his positions in order to achieve peace, that there will be a lasting form of peace? Is compromise the right word, or do you think that there is another way in which we can look about it and look at it?
Yeah, actually, I agree with Anupam that peace is better than war. But I think
My
compromise is
point is,
not the.
sorry
Yeah,
for interrupting.
yeah, sure. Please, Mr. Rao. Yeah,
Yeah,
you
I
are going
was
to
just saying that, my question was about compromise. I guess you were going that way. I didn't realize that earlier. So please go ahead. Yes, please go
Yeah,
ahead.
so compromise, I think peace need not be achieved by compromising. I think one should not compromise. Because if you compromise, then you lose your assertive. You should be assertive. You should have peace, but we should not lose our position. For instance, if you take the recent war between China and India, where China attacked us first, just after the COVID, and then there was this disengaging talks, which took place quite. Now they say that it has almost come to a solution, but there also. I mean, this is the news that is all news which I get from the media. But India did a lot of diplomatic mediation, and finally, to an extent, disengagement has happened to the fulfillment of both the places. But it is not that India is totally compromised, or maybe even China is not compromised. Each one has come to a win-win. There should be a peace should be achieved where there is a win-win situation, and each one doesn't lose its identity. Because if you compromise, then you lose your uniqueness and identity. That means you lose yourself, which should not happen. What happens is if you achieve peace by compromising, the other person, the one who compromises, the other person who doesn't compromise. Because when you compromise, in my opinion, between two parties happens only where from one party compromises, but the other may not compromise. If you have understood correctly, in order to achieve a solution, there are many such situations happening even in war. Sometimes the weaker country is not able to outwit the more powerful country. So what happens is they compromise. For instance, when Jawaharlal Nehru was the prime minister and when China attacked Arunachal Pradesh, we took a very bad beating. And finally, Jawaharlal Nehru actually compromised. And he just said, I think he literally begged China that we will peacefully let us stop this. And so actually compromised. So I think compromise is not the correct way. I'm not able to get the correct word, but
Yeah,
it
I
should
guess
be
your
done.
term win-win situation was interesting when you said they should negotiate a position that is both win-win. I want Anupam to also, have. I'd like to have, your own 2 cents on this. What do you think? Do you think that a win-win is actually plausible in all positions of, whether we can communicate a win-win in various scenarios? Do you think that this is actually possible in all scenarios?
For me, I think Hemant gave a very good constructive feedback on what I said. But I guess, Hemant, do you also think that win-win situation is possible all the time? What if the one is powerful? Like you see now, you can consider two nations. One is Russia and other is Ukraine. Ukraine is in a position to have a win-win situation with Russia right now, with Russia almost taking many kilometers of lands of Ukraine, and now when they want to end the war, will Russia lose their ground? They will not. I think someone has to compromise, and compromise, people consider it as a negative word, but I guess every time, whenever you are fighting with your wife, also, maybe if you want a peace of mind, also, sometimes you say, let's compromise, let's not
That's the
discuss
major
further.
one.
Yes, let's not discuss further and end it all, maybe just for your peace of mind. So, although it's a different matter, but in this and Ukraine conflict, I think there is no win-win situation over there. But like you said, I think I agree with you as well that both parties should go for a win-win situation. But I guess those kind of situation is not possible all the time. So Rahul, for me, uh, like you asked me, is there a possibility of win-win situation all the time? I would say no, not all the time.
Okay, great, great, great. I guess Anupam has a point there. Sometimes a party or a position may have to be compromised. And I guess you work out a win-win situation by sometimes compromising on positions that are not high on your priority list, and not compromising on positions that are high on your priority list, and coming to an agreement through communication, which is our next point. How does communication and or diplomacy, communication, whatever other aspects, other names are given to communication. Uh, how does communication interplay with peace and war? Heyman, your thoughts
Yeah.
on the interplay of communication and peace and war?
Yes, yes. Because that is again a very communication is very important. I mean, I think it's the most important tool, and especially nobody wants war. I mean, when I'm talking about war of any sorts. Like when I made my initial comments, war of any sort, whether it is between countries or between within the party or between two parties or between husband and wives or relatives. So communication is important. So communication actually both the parties have to be amicable to a solution. So that is very important. If one party is adamant, then of course your communication skill has to be that much more skillful, because bringing the amicable solution may not be that easy between yes. So communication, so there you'll have to be more tactful, because always between no two individuals are the same. When there is a difference of opinion or a discord, one may be more aggressive than the other, one may be more adamant than other. There may be times when they may not be ready to come down and lose. Because as Anupam also rightly mentioned, that give and take should always be there. There should be a give and take.
Right.
Otherwise, yes, otherwise you cannot come to a solution, isn't it? So
Right.
one party and the other, both the parties will have to let go something which is very dear to them, because the common goal is a solution, a peaceful solution. So there, yes, communication. So there, if you ask me, openness is very important. So maybe knowing the other, one technique would be to know the other person, the other party, what is what they want, and what is
Empathy.
it? What is the reason why they are wanting to go to war, and then understanding that, and so that could bring about a brainstorming and solutions could arise. I think that it always, when you talk in a very open and transparent way, if you have an open communication, I think one idea will lead to another idea, and definitely a workable solution will come out. that is why every country that Ministry of Foreign Affairs or External Affairs plays a very important role. Even if you take the China-India dialogue, I think it has been going on in that Doklam or whatever that aggression which happened. India and China, they talked. They had, I think, a series of talks. I mean, a lot of for a disengagement, and finally that solution has come about. So communication, openness, trying to understand the other, so other person's grievance, and then or problem, and then trying to analyze it, and then working out a solution by sitting across, and then bringing peace.
Right,
So that
right.
yes, so
Yes,
that it's
yes.
not easy, but you need to be tactful. You need to be listen. All the skills of communication will come to play. You know, you have to be a good listener. You'll have to empathy. All that comes to eye
So
contact, face
basically,
to
these are the factors, I guess, from what you've said. One of the things that's very crucial is openness, frankness, basically. Or there should be a sense of frank speak about your feelings, the problems that are that you're facing, the reasons for going to war, and so on. And the second thing is one must empathize. The third thing is one must look for a win-win position, right? A win-win position by compromising over certain issues that are not high on the priority list, and being able to keep certain of those that are high on the priority list, being assertive about retaining that on your side, right? So I guess
yeah.
by openness and frankness and discussing these kind of things, we can bring about a more peaceful situation or solution to war and peace. I mean, to war, making it more peaceful. Anupam, I'd
Yes.
like to ask you: is the situation of peace always the better one, has been that is like it has been projected as being something very crucial? Do you think the situation of peace or having a peaceful environment is always better, or do you think that at times there should be a breakdown of communication and we should engage in war, and in fact, war should be the art of communicating?
Hmm. Very
Do you think
interesting
that is
question,
a
Rahul. I think, like we are discussing about, and we are a land which is a part of Gandhiji's ideologies, and we think peace is the way to go forward. But I think the way we do not want war, but I think we should always practice that, and practice the sense that we are powerful. We have to make people aware that we are powerful. Why do we keep nuclear warheads, and we keep on building those nuclear nuclear weapons? Why? The reason for that is we want other countries to know that we are also powerful. We do not want to hit others, but like we are surrounded by enemy countries. We know that the neighbors are very unpredictable. To show them that in case if they try to think otherwise, we also have power. We have nuclear weapons, which we also can make use of in case of any drastic action from their side. So it's it's unfortunate that to make people or to keep peace with the world, we have to have uh, nuclear weapons, and we have to have a strong army and defense forces to show people that we love peace. But in case if you want war, we have a very powerful defense forces and weapons available with us. And this is the truth of the today's world, that to make peace with others, we have to show them power. So yeah, this is the underlying statement from my side.
basically
Yeah.
we stand committed towards peace,
Yes.
but at times we must employ or deploy war in order to exercise peace. As I guess in the case of World War II, if we look at World War II, Hitler was a man who was determined to engage in war, determined to destroy an entire society of people, determined under all circumstances to bring forth the Third Reich. And perhaps there was no other way other than to engage in war with him in order to bring a sustainable peace all over Europe and, in fact, all over the world itself. So yes, I think Anupam has a point, a relevant point there. Hemant, I'd like to break this down into the individual level that you were discussing. Do you think that the same applies between siblings? Let's say siblings are at war with each other. It is a form of war in a way, although maybe it doesn't involve violence. Because I personally believe that war doesn't all the time involve violence. It just involve, a coldness between each other, a refusal to accept or to engage with the other. So this kind of a thing can also be considered a form of war, isn't it? Although we
Yes.
may have some form of shared resources, perhaps parents that we shared at one time, we're supposed to share an inheritance, perhaps. And, things like that can sometimes lead to an act of extreme coldness between those involved in in whatever the transaction or so on and so forth. So my question to you is, how do you think communication can interplay under such a circumstance where perhaps the war is occurring between siblings or between once loving partners?
Yeah,
How do you
there,
feel
I
that
think
we can bring about?
there is it is entirely a different ballgame. It is not like one between nations. So there, because there is one particular
I think you'll have
interesting
to be a
case.
little louder, Hemant, unfortunately.
Yeah,
Slightly. Yeah.
yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes, yes. Please
Yeah.
go ahead. Sorry.
So there we'll have to be more tactful because a relationship between two nations and warring nations, between siblings or husband and wife, or between the parents and the children, I think is altogether a different thing because their love and compassion is a very important factor. So you cannot like show your nuclear sort of, what should I say? You cannot be a military sort of a person. You have to be your way of approach should be entirely different. There's a very particular incident which is just coming to my mind now. If you know Pramod Mahajan, he was an upcoming BJP leader. But I think how he died. Actually, his younger brother Praveen Mahajan shot him dead. One fine morning, he just shot him dead. And when people went into that particular incident in depth, I believe Pramod Mahajan was a very dynamic leader. Politically, he was very dynamic. But when it came to managing his siblings, it was a total failure because he was showing his high-handedness. So what was happening was his younger brother was always treated as I mean, he was demeaning him and not giving him that importance and love because of his powerful position in the BJP party. Praveen Mahajan was he was just a commoner like me and you. And that sort of behavior built resentment within Praveen Mahajan. And then one fine morning, that anger within him, he just brought it out. He just shot him in the morning. In the morning, he just shot him because he used to always yell at him, call him all sorts of names. He used to just treat him like a scavenger. That's what I've heard. When these stories came up. So this is just one example that I'm giving. So between siblings and between loved ones, between close ones, it is always good to be to communicate openly,
Yes.
forget whatever wrong
But
each
there's a
one
lot of
has.
passion involved at times, don't you think? That is perhaps something like you said rightly in the case of this particular minister, maybe even in the other cases of other people. This passion where it can be long lasting, and there can be a situation where communication breaks down and people don't want to speak to each other anymore. We've come to a position where people don't want to speak to each other. They prefer not being with each other. And under a condition, let's assume like perhaps they have some shared resource, like an inheritance that they still have to divide. What is the methods in which we can bring in communication and, end or at least neutralize this kind of a negative position that has been built up over the years? This kind of a, what do you say, animosity towards each other.
In my opinion, even in such a very difficult and uncompromising situation, um, each one should remind themselves when they were children, when they were young, as the students studying in the college, when they were young, as during the childhood days, how they were so loving with each other. So all this, I mean, animosity comes up when we become and reach adulthood, and especially once we get married, the wives will definitely create more animosity between two brothers. Invariably, it happens. So the warring factions or the warring parties should remind themselves of their childhood, the lovely childhood memories. So why don't we
Right.
bring that? Let us forget all this. After all, this is only materialistic. I mean, inheritance
Right.
and wealth and money is only something which is only short-lived, whereas the love and compassion that we can have as brothers or brother and sister is something which we can carry for many years to go. I mean, also our children will learn from that. If
Right. Right.
if we continue with animosity, the children are also watching us. Unfortunately,
Right.
many adults don't understand that, and they will bring the same. So what happens to them? So I think that is one way. That is what I feel they should do. They should remind themselves of their childhood memories. They should bring forth to the table. And then, as Anupam said in the beginning, a person should compromise. Here, that compromising should happen. Otherwise, if both are steadfast in whatever they are staying and their whatever they have in their mind, then it'll be like a stalemate. So one may have to compromise, and then bring the other to the table, maybe a cup of tea or coffee or whatever it is. Then speak in that that particular open and frank and open communication. That should be there right away.
Right. Right.
Yes,
The
that
openness
would
and the frankness, the empathy. Very true. What's your take on this, Anupam? What do you think about
I
the
think,
matter
yeah,
how this can be
I
solved?
think, like Hemant said, and you also put it right way. I think empathy for each other, uh, being frank with each other, and also setting up boundaries that what things if someone is not liking or someone feels that they are being left behind, being open, talk to your siblings about the things that you are not being taken well on the things that you feel that something is bothering you, then you should be very upfront. Like we said, when we were kids, we used to talk with each other with open heart. Those kind of things we should remember and try to be empathetic. And also, I think another way of doing these or being patience, having patience is very important things between any relationship. So that is also very important. Have then
Right.
these things can be cultivated through maybe through
Can assist it.
meditation, doing some yogas, and also practicing in daily life between your colleagues, with your family members. Inculcate these
Very true.
empathy and these kind of good habits inbuilt. If it is there, practice it daily, then I think it will be
I
um,
think actually,
yeah.
one of the things is belief as well, like having the belief in communication. So if you inculcate as a habit amongst, the upcoming folk, uh, the fact that, communication is the way forward, and you make them believe in the powers of communication, it's possible that they might not quickly, deploy other methods such as cold wars with just like that. They might begin to sustain or try to at least hold in a slight amount of linkage, a small few links with each other in order to, um, you know, ensure that it doesn't become a total outright war in which everybody loses. Because I firmly believe that outright war is a way in which every human being and all the participants of war tend to lose something, an eye, an arm, a tooth, or something. They all lose
Yes,
something.
yes,
And even at the individual level, something in your psychology is lost, something in your, faith is lost. So once human beings are inculcated with a firm faith, a belief in communication and its powers, it's possible that they will ensure that lines and channels of communication are never closed. And at some point, they can engage with each other in some form of a manner, if not in a friendly manner, at least in a way that would, be positive for both of them, positive, and it would end up in something that is fruitful, because war is never fruitful, right? All parties in a war lose. The winner also loses, the loser also loses. So I think communication is the way to rebuild a lot of what is lost. And communication is a way to ensure that a lot is not lost as well. So that faith in the powers of communication, the faith in changing the ways that you perceive and look at how you approach the communication, like Hemant mentioned, building a win-win position through, prioritizing what is more important to you and what is less important to the other, frank communication and honesty, empathy, all these kind of words. Once you believe in them, you tend to ensure that communication is built, or it makes something of value, creates something of value to all the parties or all the individuals that are involved in this. Yeah. So I think today we'll wind up our session. It was a fantastic session, interesting insights into the concepts of war, peace, and communication. We hope that all individuals who have ever found themselves in a situation of war, who have ever found themselves in a situation which things are being lost, we wish them and hope that they are able to bring about a more positive situation and position for themselves and for all those who are involved, and build something better out of all that was negative through communicating more effectively, understanding each other more effectively, knowing the reality of themselves, and communicating honestly about who they really are and what their position really is vis-a-vis the other, and build better lives, right? Build better lives through communication. All right, guys. Thank you very much for your insights. And we hope that those who are watching this channel, if you've enjoyed this channel, kindly do subscribe to our channel. We will be coming up with more videos where we look at various concepts that are important in the modern world. Have a good day. Good day. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you, Hemant.
Thank you.
Anupam. Bye.